Hey everyone, happy holidays. It's near the end of the year 2016. I think we can all agree we're happy to get this year over. I have a few more gifts I need to get to wrap up the season, and I will finally be done, so I'm thankful for that. And I have a few more projects to do. I've been getting a lot of questions on Instagram and on Reddit about the bottle stoppers that I make and how I go about finishing them. So I figured I'd make a video. I have one more bottle stopper to make for a co-worker of mine who's a real good dude. So hopefully this will turn out really good. It's big leaf maple burl that I have stabilized myself using a vacuum chamber and a stabilizing agent called cactus juice, which I highly recommend. It's a small company that makes it out of Texas, and it's a really good product. And I've done a lot of pins out of stabilized burl that I've done myself, and hybrid pins. Not so many bottle stoppers, so I'm excited to see how a bigger piece turns out. So this was cured in cactus juice and then cured in the oven for a few hours. So let's see how it turns out. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I did here was mark off the center, so when I drill it, it will turn evenly on the lathe. I went ahead and marked off the drill bit with some blue painter's tape as a depth gauge so I can have an easier time batching these guys out. And perfect job there, I'd say. Now I'm going to thread the blank into the mandrel. Most mandrels are 3/8 or 7/32. This one is a 7/32 to correspond with the stopper kit that I bought for this. Now, I always make my own blanks, whether it's bottle stoppers or pins or anything small like that. You can always buy them yourself too, but I find that if you do any woodworking projects, you're going to have enough scrap for as many blanks as you want. Now I'm just going to secure this with a tailstock and set up the tool rest, and I'm going to turn it into a somewhat cylindrical shape to begin with to speed it up. And once I do that, I'll start narrowing the piece closest to the chuck using a set of calipers that I gauged a wine bottle stopper with prior to this. Also with the calipers, they're typically sharp at the corners, so I grind them down just so they don't catch the workpiece. Now the rest of this I'm just going to speed up a little bit so you can see the whole process, but don't have to spend 15 minutes watching me carve this whole thing out. Let's throw a little water on here, show you what's cool about Burl. Look at that. Oh yeah. Gorgeous. Okay, here's where the calipers come in. This section of the blank is going to be touching the actual bottle stopper. It's where the chrome piece goes in. So I'm just measuring that, so there's just a fluid size transition from the chrome piece to the actual bottle stopper itself. Once I have that down, then I'll go in to start shaping right here. the rest of the bottle stopper with a round carbide bit. Second here to look at what's going on with this wood. If you look, there's a little bit of everything happening here. There's bark inclusions, there's a little bit of spalting, there's some bird's eye over here. There's these weird striations. I'm guessing that's a form of spalting also. There's some bit of I think that's quilting. It's quilting or curly. This grain is everywhere. So if I didn't stabilize this prior in the vacuum chamber, it would have probably exploded on me by now, going at 1900 or 2000 RPM here. What I wanted to point out was there's all kinds of random craziness going on here, and I don't want to fix any of it. I think nature has a better grasp of the design than I ever will. So I want to kind of showcase it by leaving these and just cleaning them up, and I'll fill them in with some really thin CA glue to just kind of show them off, because that's what makes this piece, or is what is going to make this piece unique, I think, is all the different stuff going on with it. So I just wanted to talk about that for a second. So, you know, because some people think, oh, there's a crack, we need to fix that or whatever, when, I mean, who knows, it might be worth showing off. It's unique, and it adds to the character of the piece, and the fact that it's an original, you know, one of a kind. Cool. So I'm gonna finish up here. This is about 15 minutes worth of work. I left this nipple here for stability of the workpiece, and then cleaned this up here, and then I'm going to sand it after it's all said and done, and the chrome piece for the bottle stopper will cover this, and we'll start sanding starting at 120 and then going all the way up to 800 grit, and wet sanding it to raise the grain and sort of fill in some spots using the, I've heard it referred to as the slurry method, which is good for walnut and maple. And yeah, let's get going. Here's where I start sanding, and I start from 120 and all the way through the grits to 800 grit, and I dip the sandpaper in mineral oil before I start sanding. It serves a couple different purposes. It reduces friction, which is really good for your fingertips there. If anybody's sanded on a lathe before, you know how quickly that can heat up at those speeds. And it completely takes dust out of the equation. So if you don't want to breathe dust and you're okay with having mineral oil on your hands, then I highly recommend this method. And it looks really good on the wood too. It soaks in a bit, same as what you do with a cutting board. So this is after sanding only to 150. That is amazing. That's just the natural wood. That is fantastic. Now that the sanding is done, that looks amazing, and it feels super smooth to the touch, which is what I aim for. Now the next step is to clean it off with some denatured alcohol and let that dry off, and then we'll add some walnut oil. Now I'm going to put on some walnut oil. And what's really cool about finishing Burl is the end grain will soak up more of that oil than the edge grain will, leaving you with a more contrasting work piece that just shows off more vibrantly than your standard normal grain would. And I put on as many coats of this as I can, typically like 4 or 5, and I hand rub them in just so it saturates the workpiece and you get the best result. Now to the second to last stage of finishing, I add some thin CA glue on it, and I use a shop towel to thin it out while it's spinning at low speed. The first couple coats I don't use any activator, I just want it to soak into the piece and provide more stability and a harder shell to protect the workpiece. After that, I'll do 7 or 8 more coats with activator and quadruple aught steel wool in between. And I get a little aggressive with the steel wool. I just want to make sure that this piece feels like glass. And it's important that each time you use the steel wool, I wipe it down with a clean shop rag afterwards so I don't have small pieces of wool trapped underneath 5 or 6 layers of CA glue, because that just that would look terrible and drive me crazy. Okay, I have about 8 or 9 layers of CA glue on this, so that should be enough to protect it should somebody drop it or launch it across the room when they go to open a bottle of wine, or they've had too much wine and who knows what happens. So now the next step for this is to get the micro mesh out and really polish up that CA glue finish, so it just looks like glass is what we're going for. So that's the next step. So micro mesh, if you're familiar with it, is a polishing paper that goes from 1500 grit to 12,000 grit. Really polishes finishes like this. One thing you should always keep in mind is that it's very important that you thoroughly wet the paper before polishing, or you're going to build up friction, which you really do not want. Is some high quality
ultra gloss plastic polish. You can see that there. There we go. I do 2 coats of this, and when I go to buff it out, I increase the RPMs to build up a little bit of friction, but other than that, it's just like polishing a car. This is the last thing you need to do. Alright, so here's how the kit comes. It's just this screw. I believe it's 7/32, and it is the same as the mandrel right here. So this is already threaded. So all I do is just thread this guy all the way in, right there, and then this guy just screws right on, and then there you go. One immensely, amazingly gorgeous bottle stopper for a coworker of mine. Cool. Alright guys, well, let me know what you think. If you like the video, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe down below, and have a good holiday. Thanks for watching.